Is this thing on? This will be the penultimate of my desire series. Regarding the series itself, uh, this one, sort of the final one, the final non-sexual desire, which is going to be spiritual desires slash affective desire. I'm putting the spiritual here because, to some degree, yes, the spiritual is a cognitive desire, but it's also a sort of one tied to our emotion states, or states of being, fundamentally. Um, it is. It's still sort of a cognitive desire in that it's a form of belief, but it's also an affective desire because it impacts how we understand ourselves, as well as sort of basically the cognitive part of understanding the world around us. Um, so, getting into sort of affective, and then I'll get into spiritual. And then we got one more book review, and that'll wrap up this desire series that did focus heavily on sex. But there are things that the people want that is not related to sex in any way. So, for affective desires, it's really fundamentally our emotion states. Wanting to basically not be depressed about our existence, not wanting to feel useless, not wanting to feel unwanted by others. That's part of the social of the affective. So, how how it relates to our wants. Basically, we just don't want to feel depressed, don't want to feel lonely, don't want to feel whatever sort of negative effect that you can think of. Poor emotion state. We want to be happy. And the ways we achieve such, uh, part of it is social, but also part of it is how we see ourselves. And that is sort of where the spiritual comes in. Um, uh, yes, it's kind of a sort of a conceited statement to say uh, where we find our belief in a higher power ties more to ourselves. Um, yeah, difficult one to justify. Um, the reason why I think such is, even if you believe in a form of consciousness outside of our physical existence, which is sort of the general framing of what God is, sort of going down the path of which specific form of that consciousness is the most accurate, which one is the most um, real, if you want to give it a specific name. That is a process of our own emotional interpretation, because how we conceive it and which form we find most accurate fundamentally comes down to which one has more effect on our identity. And our identity is part of our emotions. What we attribute to ourselves is really what we like about ourselves. It's often rare that people attribute something negative about themselves to their identity. Usually it's because it's been applied socially by others that they also apply it to themselves, but usually rarely will someone apply sort of a negative identity to themselves. without having been influenced by the social circumstances, how others have considered their identity. And so that's where the spiritual comes into play, and then sort of the emotive, affective, basically how we interpret ourselves impacts what our emotional states are. Often what leads people to sort of depressive states is when they are analyzing their lives and they're not satisfied with the outcomes compared to where they expect it to be. Often sort of where you'll see a decline in depression is when people reduce their personal expectations or social expectations. Not necessarily always the case, but a good pathway to do reduction of depression is to sort of take stock in which expectations that you have for yourself are unrealistic, and then sort of set realistic ones that you can achieve, and then over time you can achieve more, and more you can achieve even if you don't realize you can achieve them. That's sort of something military cultures tell you is even when you think you can achieve something, if you still put in some level of effort, eventually you will achieve some part of that goal. And emotive states are important in sort of being able to operate within a social world. Understanding what other emotional states people are going through will help you navigate communication with those people. And sometimes people are in distress and can use a word from someone, sort of a commentary on their life, but then some people are in distress and find that judgmental. You have to play it by ear. Sometimes the word is more important than their sort of interpretation of judgment. Overall, what is spiritual and affective desires? It's sort of the want of positive emotional states, or the want of going away from negative emotional states. Sort of one thing that causes wide variations in emotional states, whether often is either sort of forms of psychosis where people experience breaks from reality and can't really understand what is real in their lives, and then sort of if they experience delusions of persecution, that could cause very negative emotional states. The other being sort of those who are using substances that change brain states so frequently that they have a chemical dependence on it, often will experience negative emotional states when they are not able to remain using those substances. Those are sort of the more common forms of negative emotional states, sort of turning into chronically negative emotional states. So the tools to change this often involve forms of sort of cognitive behavioral therapy and various other models to treat people who are in chronically negative emotional states. Anyways, these are just my thoughts. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I definitely appreciate those who continue to consume my content. And I will see you in the next one.